Moshe Taragin here from Gush Etzion, and it's an honor to deliver some Pesach thoughts on behalf of Mizrahi. Chag Kasher v'Sameach. We'll read about the Makos. We'll read about the process of breaking the resolve of an obstinate tyrant who refused to release people he had been persecuting for hundreds of years, his empire. And we're left asking ourselves, why the song and dance? Why the Makos? Why the instructions to Paro? Why the palace visits of Moshe Rabbeinu? Why the warnings? Why the tfilos? There are many answers to that question. The Makos are not just an instrument to liberate us, but to educate Egypt, and as the cradle of civilization to educate the ancient world about Hashem through the Makos. But it still seems very redundant. And keep in mind, the clock is ticking. Unfortunately, the clock is ticking on our hostages, and we know what it's like as each day passes. In Mitzrayim, at some point, the work abated, but we were still subjugated. So just, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lift us from Egypt, as you had promised us. Those 4 promises of deliverance, V'hotzeti, V'itzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti. When we heard them, we probably thought, you'll lift us, V'hotzeti. You will rescue us immediately, V'itzalti, V'ga'alti, and certainly V'lakachti. Hashem would take us as his people overnight. And yet close to a year elapsed between when Moshe first introduced the concept of Jewish redemption and the night of Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kechatzos halayla ani yored b'soch Mitzrayim. Why such a long and arduous and painful process? And to a degree, this is why Moshe was a little bit upset in the end of Seif Parsha Shemos. Lam hariosa lam hazeh. Why don't you perform something akin to Kriyas Yamsuf? There was a build-up to Kriyas Yamsuf as well, but it was instantaneous. Kadosh Baruch Hu could have extracted us from Mitzrayim, literally, without worrying about Paro and Mitzrayim and Makos in an instant. And the answer to that question is that Jewish redemption is not a national event. It is a worldwide event. The redemption of the Jewish people is meant to advance humanity, and every redemptive moment in Jewish history advanced humanity. And the final Geula, which we're working so hard towards, will advance humanity, despite the fact that our many, many enemies and opponents don't realize it yet, and they're fighting us tooth and nail, fighting themselves, shooting themselves in the leg, rather than assisting us in advancing the end of days by settling the land of Israel and introducing a period of universal welfare and prosperity. Because it's meant to improve the entire world and advance the world, Geula is more often than not streamed through politics and through human history and through social currents, rather than being imposed from above. Because Hashem wants politics, society, culture, humanity, morality to all be improved by his revelation and, of course, our elevation as a people. So for this to happen, Hashem wanted Paro to be part of it. Paro's Yad Chazaka, keep Yad Chazaka Yegar Shem, that Paro himself will participate in the redemption. For Paro to participate in Geula, Hashem had to force his hand. Same thing happened the night of Pesach. The first half of the night was part of Makas Bacharos, even though the Malach HaMaves only took the firstborn Egyptians. The second part, a civil war broke out. The firstborn led a civil uprising against Paro, who refused to release the slaves, even though the firstborn knew that they would now be in the crosshairs. And according to some accounts, 60,000 Egyptians died at the hands of the firstborn before the firstborn were ever taken in stage 2 of Makas Bacharos. Lamake Mitzrayim Bivcharehem. They were the instruments for that civil war. To the average onlooker, it looked like this was a domestic affair, but Hashem fomented the political unrest because Hashem works behind the scenes through history, not only above history, by superimposing a divine will upon history. This is what we're living through right now. We're living through a century of tumult and political instability, of states rising and states falling, of communism falling, of Islamic fundamentalism, which will fall, seemingly mighty, mighty movements, a lot of quicksand, a lot of wars, a lot of ideologies, a lot of cultural shifts. When you sense that political turmoil, you know that Geula is around the corner. Now, that corner may take us many, many decades to turn, but we've been privileged to live in a period in which we can smell the whiff of Geula. Kol Hator Nishma Be'artzeno. And it isn't always pleasant to be part of the process, and it takes sometimes steely resolve and courage and paying difficult prices. But as we approach Zman Cheruseinu and Zman Geulaseinu, we realize we're right back in Egypt, where the Rebbeinu Shalom is streaming his Geula, at least at this stage, through politics, through diplomacy, through cultural narratives or cultural wars, through religious ideologies that are warring with the real, authentic image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. So we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that maybe the time has come, ki v'moed, maybe we've done enough, and maybe the world is ready for v'yeda kol po ki ata pe'alto, v'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, b'yom hahu yeh Hashem echad, u'shemo echad, Chag kasher v'sameach, and a year of besiros tovos, and a year of yeshuos and nachamos, and a year of geula and refuah for our people.